Hi students, we're talking about an area called ancient Mesopotamia. This video is going to cover Unit 2, Lesson 3, and Unit 2, Lesson 4. And much of the information in this video will be on your quizzes. Again, in Lesson 2, 3, and in Lesson 4. Mesopotamia is an ancient region between the Tigris and Euphrates River. It means land between two rivers. On the left, you can see the ancient cities in the area, and on the right, you can see the modern day countries that encompass that area today. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and those little countries along the Mediterranean there are Israel, Palestine, and the yellow one is Jordan. An area that continues to have a lot of conflict in modern day times, which makes it difficult to do excavations there and to learn about these ancient civilizations. I did include a video from National Geographic on ancient Mesopotamia. It's short, but it really will help you to see how innovations in ancient Sumer still impact us today. Things like the 60-second minute, the 60-minute hour, the 7-day week, the months of the year, and even modern Arabic languages. Sumer is really the cradle of civilization. A lot of innovations happened there as people settled down, domesticated animals, and tilled the land for agriculture. The Sumerians invented the wheel. They also invented the first writing system called cuneiform. Much of the writing has to do with business, things like renting, agreements between landlords and renters, receipts for goods and services. The Sumerians were also the first people to use the pyramid. So not the Egyptians, the Sumerians. And much of Sumerian art was what we would call propaganda. It was created to show the greatness of their leaders. For example, Gudi of Lagash was a renowned Sumerian leader. There's a sculpture of Gudea on this slide on the right here. A ziggurat is a step pyramid, and they were commonly made of clay. There were other people in the area. Those people were the Akkadians and the Amorites. Those people were nomadic, still hunting and gathering. And oftentimes there was a lot of conflict between these groups of people. A lot of war, a lot of fighting. But eventually they are united. One of the kings that unites the area is called Sargon the Great. And he rules from 2334 to 2279 BCE. You will not have to know those dates. His grandson, Naram-Sin, claims to defeat the other nomadic group, the Amorites, and this is called the Naram-Sin Stele, and it shows his victory. Again, we would consider this to be propaganda, like showing the importance of Naram-Sin's leadership. And you can see that in the shape of the stele. It's kind of a triangle, and at the pinnacle you have the most important person who is the largest, taking up the most space, visually trying to show the importance of the figure and the victory over the other people at the bottom of the pyramid. You could choose this or the ziggurat or the statue of Gudia of Lagash. Any of these things, any of these artworks could be a topic for your midterm. So one of the other groups in the area were the Amorites, and they were a Semitic group that moved into the Fertile Crescent, which is another word for Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, after 2000 BC. And they were nomadic, and eventually they settled down and they began to build their own cities. Semitic refers to the language. These are the first Arab languages. All this fighting, it starts to weaken these states. City-states, one of them being and also the area. And it encourages others to attack, namely the Persians, who eventually sack the area. But before that happens, these groups do integrate. They all kind of just begin to live a more peaceful existence because they have other people to worry about who are now, they're sort of looking at them and going, they're getting a little powerful over there. So they're getting attacked by even other groups from farther away. One of the greatest kings of the area of the time is Hammurabi. And he creates the Hammurabi Code, which is the first time that we know of that laws are actually written down. And this is the object where they wrote down the laws. So on the left, you have a close-up where you can see the engraving. And on the right, it's the whole sculpture where these laws were written down. Pretty amazing that it survives intact. Assyria begins as a city-state in the region of Mesopotamia about 1300 BC. So now we're really going to lesson 4. We're going to talk about the Assyrians and the Persians and the Phoenicians. And they really come later in the area. Around 900 BCE, they are no longer just a small city-state, but they have really risen to power and taken over that area. And they are most famous for their use of relief sculpture that decorated their buildings. And on the right, you can see an example of that relief sculpture. It's a figure with wings. And a lot of the figures in their artwork have wings or these headdresses and these stylized beards and hair do's, I guess we would call it. One of their most famous kings that leads Babylon to his peak power, you can see it right there, Nebuchadnezzar. I'm not going to try and say it for you. You will need to know that for the quiz. Okay, but then in comes the Persians, and they conquer Babylon in about 539 BC. So you can see that this area has been consistently occupied by these groups of people for over 1,000 years before the Persians conquer the area. Babylon is known for its hanging gardens, being one of the 7 wonders of the world, and the Ishtar Gate, which is the only remaining architectural feature from Babylon. The gardens don't exist anymore. And it's hard to do archaeology in the area today because of the conflict. So in come the Persians, and they're really most famous for their pottery. They created tiles that they would cover whole buildings in ceramic tile. And blue is a color that they use a lot. So you can see up on the right, there's a blue ceramic plate from Persia. And much of the pottery was painted with geometrical, floral, and animal motifs, which still today characterize the Persian style. And one of the most widely used motifs is that of the lotus bloom. The lotus is a flower, and you find it on Persian pottery, and it symbolizes life. You will need to know that. Persepolis was the Persian capital, and it is famous for its palaces, monuments, and temples. And in the bottom left, you can see a sculpture on one of the temples, and it's a hand holding that lotus bloom that symbolizes life. Just to back up, this is the human-headed winged lion, and this is an Assyrian relief sculpture. And I gave a link here to where you can find out more information about it on the Metropolitan Museum of Art's website. Museums, when you are doing your midterm, you want to use a reputable site. Museums are reputable sites. National Geographic or Encyclopedia Britannica. Those are good, reputable sources. And then finally, the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians are a seafaring people renowned for their glassware. You may have heard of Phoenician glassware. They were sailors, and archaeologists credit them with sailing as far as around the entire coast of Africa, which is amazing. The Phoenicians fabricated glass jars using lost wax, core forming, and mouth blowing techniques. And I have included a video here where you can see some of those techniques being used. So I hope this helps you with the quiz. A lot of the information here is on the quiz. I know it is a lot of information. Please try and review it, and you can then take the Unit 2 Lesson 3 quiz and the Unit 2 Lesson 4 quiz. Thanks and have a great day.